Well, hello. Welcome into the channel. I'm Shauna if you're new here, and welcome into another video. Today, we're going to talk about the up and downsides, the upside and downside of no buys, and kind of my take on how to find a balance and kind of my recent thoughts about this particular topic, because it really has been on my mind in my personal life and talking to friends about it. I just think it's a good topic to talk about. And even when it comes to the downsides of a no buy, I don't really think they're talked about a lot. And a no buy is not for everybody, or sometimes it is for you, but it's just not the right time. So I hope in this video that if you're looking to, weigh the pros and cons of a no buy, I hope that this video helps you make a decision to figure out if no buys are for you or a no buy is for you in this particular season of your life. So the second reason is that if you're already on a no buy, I hope this video can kind of resonate with you. And sometimes no buys can be really inspiring, and they can also feel like a drag. So hopefully you can find something that resonates with you here. And then the third reason is just kind of personal, that I've had some thoughts recently and some kind of flip-flopping of ideas. And maybe you've seen me kind of have both sides of the coin. I want to be on a no buy, I don't. And we'll get into it. Just gonna take a sip of tea, hold on. I often, when I'm drinking a drink, I often forget that I'm filming, and you get all these awkward kind of takes, and then it kind of blurs out. So let's get into it. My ultimate view is that a no buy can be a really great tool and a really positive force for good, but there are downsides, and sometimes that is what makes me want to, let's say, be on a low buy or a beauty budget instead. So let's talk about some of the downsides first, so then we can end on the positives, and then also talk about this kind of figure of balance. And also, because there's downsides, doesn't mean we can't figure out a way to navigate them. Number one, we can feel really bored really quickly while on a no buy. It's not really, or it's not inherently a bad thing, because I think challenging our boredom is a really positive thing. But I do think that the boredom can hold people back from starting a no buy in general, or it can lead us down the path of wanting to buy new things, wanting to spruce up our makeup collections, or even, I'm using makeup because most of us here are on makeup no buys, but want to buy new things or new makeup to bring in. And I just think ultimately it's a feeling that we have to fight or combat more often than I think I realized, and it can be challenging at times. And also, not all of these things are equal. I wouldn't not go on a no buy because I'm I'm gonna be bored, that's gonna be terrible. No, some of these are a little bit more, difficult to deal with. They're more challenging, really, and some of them are just kind of, just the downside, really. Okay, number two, one that's not talked about so much, but I hear a ton in the comments, especially from people who are on no buys across their life and not just with makeup, is that no buys can put a strain on family or relationships in a couple of ways. The first is that people just not agreeing with the choices that you're making, and then two, people don't understand the choices that you're making, it's not necessary, or you don't overshop, or you wanting support and you're not really getting it. Or I guess even more to the support point, if you want to do it with somebody, this happens where this rhetoric is more prominent in decluttering, where you want your child or your spouse or your mom or whoever to declutter with you, but then they don't. That can be frustrating, but I think that can apply equally to no buys. And then a layer on that can be in social situations. So if you don't want to participate in the same kinds of activities, like going shopping with friends or family, because when you don't want to shop into shopping with people can be triggering, and they can encourage you to buy more things when you don't want to. And when it comes to food as well, if you're not eating out at all or as much, friends can be inviting you out or inviting you to their house or inviting you to here or there. and you don't want to spend the money or eat out because you're on a no-buy, it can be challenging to navigate those situations. And sometimes it can strain the relationship because you're always saying no, or even if you're posing alternatives like, oh, let's do this instead, there can be that like relationship kind of I'm trying to find the words here. There can be that relationship strain. And I've heard from a lot of you in the comments, especially in a recent video, where shopping with other people has kind of, like when you step back from that, there have been, like it's been good for your wallet and good for you, but other people aren't so happy. And navigating relationships is a topic that there's so many facets and so many ways that this can play out. Even like dates with your spouse or partner or your kids, other people might not understand the choices that you're making, or they don't want or value the same things as you. So there's like a clash of values, or maybe values might be too strong of a word, but it could certainly apply. I really think that this one is just one that isn't talked a lot about in the no-buy space. It's talked about in the minimal space or the decluttering spaces. And I think one that maybe people really forget to look at or maybe don't see as they're coming in. And just depending on who you are and where you are in life and what your goals are and kind of what your no-buy looks like, it could play more of a role than for other people. Number 3 is that breaking a no-buy can make you feel like garbage. I've heard from so many of you over the years, especially in 2020, when I first started the channel, and even I see this on forums and things like that, but people who have gone on a no-buy and then they broke it and are like, I will never go back on one again, because like they don't feel like they can do it, or that they're gonna just break it again. It can make you feel like trash. It could prevent you from ever doing a no-buy in the future. I don't say that to imply that everybody needs to go on a no-buy, or if you spend this way, you must be on a no-buy. But I do think that there's some people who feel like they would want to, but don't, because they've had a bad prior experience. Breaking a no-buy can be positive, like if you take it in stride and learn from it, and try and, do better moving forward. But that doesn't happen all the time. And it can really demotivate you, and it can even, put you onto a spiral or a spending spree, and you just kind of spend away. And so breaking a no-buy can feel like a real low for some people, and can be a hard hurdle to overcome if you do it all. Okay, number 4 is that no-buys can be way more emotional than you might be prepared to handle. And everybody's no-buy is a little bit different. So I don't want to say that just because you go on a no-buy, you will absolutely have some kind of emotional experience. The reason why I say this is because we all want to be on a no-buy for a reason. Like we all feel like it's necessary if you're on a no-buy, or if you're thinking about it. There's something that's driving you to do that. And we all shop in the way that we shop because of learned experiences, and we've established behaviors surrounding purchasing and money. And many of the ways we shop are driven by ideas about ourselves or other people. I know that's really vague, but there is definitely a mixture of rationales and reasons here. And then the moment you stop buying, I think people start to unravel some of these things. They see that they're using it as a coping mechanism, or they're using it as a way to fix themselves, or they're using it as a way to find contentment or fulfillment in their life, or they're using it to find because they don't think they're an adequate person, or they're using it because whatever. Not everybody fits all the things I've just said, but there are components to shopping that can be hard to look at or hard to digest. When we stop buying, we're often forced to reckon with these things, or it provides an opportunity to do that. And so facing something that you see as a flaw, or facing these realities of why you've shopped, or even how much debt you might be in, can be a really tough experience to go through. And this was something I didn't realize was coming at me going into my no-buy, and kind of caught me off guard. And that can be, I think it's to me, it's the most rewarding part of the no-buy, but in the moment, it can just be so hard, work needing to be done, that we're not prepared to face. Sometimes it's not the right moment to face it. Sometimes we're just caught so off guard. We're like, what the hell am I doing? The emotional experience can be overwhelming, and the internal reflection can be overwhelming. The looking yourself in the mirror, the decisions that you've made can be overwhelming. And quite frankly, I know, I'm just going to speak for me, I have been judgmental about the way I've gone about dealing with things and dealing with hard times and dealing with money, and even facing the way that I've judged myself can be hard. A no-buy does not inherently fix your relationship with money. It can definitely help you and help you save, but no-buys are often portrayed as this like one-stop shop. You do it and you're just better. Like, you're better after you fixed all your bad habits. And while I think doing that is a very rewarding part of the no-buy, the no-buy in itself, if you just look at the no-buy as I'm not going to buy things, I do believe that the process of not buying things will force you to look at your decision making and look at your habits, even in a small way, or looking at how you purchase. I really believe that, but it doesn't fix your relationship with money, because unless you actively put something into your no-buy to help you post no-buy, you can absolutely make the exact same mistakes and go back to the way that you were shopping before. This is something I see very often with people who go on a monthly no-buy, like for 1 month or for 3, 4, 5 months. A friend of mine has been talking to me about they've been watching BookTube and how people go on like a book ban for YouTube, for BookTube. And they're talking about how just about everybody ends up going back to their old purchasing habits after. And they were having a hard time finding no-buy content in the book world. If you have any recommendations for that, I would love to hear them in the comments below. But going on a no-buy doesn't prepare you for the after unless you put that preparation in place. And so while you might be saving money in the no-buy, you can go on a rebound after, or just go back to how things were. And then it can feel like you wasted your time, or your no-buy was not successful, or you could come out feeling like a brand new person and then only to slip into old ways in just a little bit. I think the same thing, or I guess an analogy or something that could be similar with decluttering. Decluttering your makeup and then going back to the same habit in just a few short weeks or months. The same thing can happen with no-buys. One that feels particularly real for me is going on a no-buy can make purchasing anything feel bad, or you can feel guilty about spending any money, period. And this for me is one of the harder things, even now, to balance. And while I absolutely don't want to believe this, I don't believe it. Sometimes my actions or the content I'm consuming can make me feel that way. And it can, I guess, the second part to this one is that you can become just as obsessed with not buying things as you were with buying things. And the pendulum just swings in the other direction. And I spoke about this, last year and even in 2020. And for me personally, this is the part of the no-buy where I have to actively work on to create that balance and a no-buy that kind of feels right, or a lifestyle that feels right. And there's so much obsessing over every purchase. And this is one thing I've seen on Instagram. And when I see it in other people, that's when I can look and be like, okay, I'm doing this too, so maybe I need to step back. Recently, looking at somebody's no-buy kind of Instagram page, and they were talking about how they went over budget, or they bought things and they weren't supposed to because there was unforeseen circumstances, and they really beat themselves up over these purchases. One wasn't really necessary, and they kind of acknowledged that. It was just kind of like they were feeling kind of shitty about themselves, so they bought it. Then the other thing was something that they had to fix that was broken. I think it was maybe their car or an appliance or something like that. And they felt terrible because they spent money that they hadn't, not that they didn't have, but that wasn't part of the no-buy. And it was this whole justifying all the purchases and also feeling like crap because you spent money or you bought something when you really didn't want to buy anything. And this, I think, is one of the biggest or most significant pitfalls, is having to justify things to yourself, over justifying, and like super analyzing everything that you buy, and then it can like suck the fun out of life. I don't think anybody wants to feel that way, but it absolutely happens. And I know I get into this kind of moment too. I think the obsessing is something that can happen to a lot of people and is for me like one of the biggest downsides of the no buy. I also had an experience of going off the no buy and going on to a low buy and just not being prepared for it and just kind of assuming that I would be fine because I did a no buy. Like I know what to do, but that's just not always the case. Even though you have the lessons of your no buy behind you, we're not always prepared for life after unless we make clear steps to do that, and I hadn't. Another way the no buys treat as the ultimate fix is not just the habits, but it's like, do this thing and your relationship with stuff will be transformed. And it's setting expectations of high, and we can just be disappointed and it can just really fall flat. The next thing is that motivation can be very difficult to maintain. And I mean, I have a video on motivation if you want to watch it. It can be super challenging, and there could be so many temptations that we just don't know how to manage, or our motivation just wanes and we can't figure out how to move forward. That can be a huge challenge for a lot of people. And the last thing is that treating a no buy as a punishment, or maybe even feeling like you need to punish yourself for the choices that you made, like that you've made your bed, now you have to lie in it kind of thing, but not just lying in it, like giving yourself the most uncomfortable bed you can because you don't deserve a better one, Treating your no buy like a punishment can really suck the fun out of life, and especially for those who are on no buys across, different parts of their lives or every part of their life. It can suck the fun out of those things, and then also it can cause us to be like, I did this to myself, like you have to sit in this, you don't deserve to eat out, or, finding fun moments or trying to find fun or even luxury or entertainment in your no buy can be something that we're disinclined to do because, it's a punishment. Have you ever been grounded by your parents and you're in your room and they're like yelling at you because you're like jumping around, you're supposed to be serious? That's kind of what this feels like. And I think part of why the no buy can feel like punishment is that, but also we haven't maybe found alternatives to shopping as a habit. Saying no a lot, especially with people inviting you out, can just feel shitty. Saying no to yourself all the time can be shitty. It can be empowering sometimes, but also can get bored and like, I'm so tired of this. Life isn't fun right now. Punishing yourself for your choices can also make you inclined to, feel guilty for trying to have fun, or, try to make your no buy feel like fun. Now let's talk about the good parts of the no buy. Going on a no buy can teach us about our bad shopping habits and give us time to work on new ones. If we look at a no buy in terms of an opportunity to think about our habits and to change them, to, remove the negative ones or replace them with something that's positive, I think that's absolutely fabulous. And sometimes that can take weeks or months to figure out, because sometimes we have, let's say, one major bad shopping habit, or we might have 10, or we might have a couple, but they kind of go into our like different parts of our lives. Or maybe we have habits that only pop up when you're stressed or when something bad happens, but your life is in a great state and there's not a lot of bad stuff happening. So maybe something happens on, month 5 out of 12. A no buy, even if it's just 6 months, can be a good place to help us test drive new habits. I love that. No buys can teach us about our triggers. Like, are we emotional spenders? Are we boredom scrollers? Are we late night, can't sleep kind of purchasers? Are we trying to fix our stuff ourselves with stuff kind of purchasers? I like learning about those things. And I feel like when it comes to our shopping, when it comes to our consumption, this is a place where I really feel like knowledge is power, where we can make better decisions. And the more we learn and know about ourselves, the better decisions that we can just make. The third is it can help us find the number of things that feels like enough, that sweet spot. Or I guess in other words, help us find the number of things that we can handle, whether it's makeup or clothing or books. And my friend Rita actually really pointed this out, and I think it's a really fabulous observation. In the no buy, we're trying to figure out like what feels right, how much inventory can we handle, how much stuff can we handle before we feel overwhelmed. Or if we are feeling overwhelmed, it gives us time to work on our stuff and use it up before we buy more. This is a really positive thing for a lot of people in their no buy, especially if it goes across the board. And it can even give us time to declutter. And I guess relatedly, it can help us figure out our preferences. If we're at the point where we feel like a no buy is necessary, we're acquiring more than we can handle. And so if we have more than we can handle, it's fairly likely that we're not wearing or using all of the things that we own. So if that's the case, then it's likely that we don't know how we feel about everything, if not most things. And so stopping the purchasing, stopping the influx of goods can help us figure out how we feel about what we own and realize, does this make us happy? Do I even like this? Does this bring me joy? Do I like using this, And that is really welcomed and can help us buy better in the future. I know for me in the past, I indulged every want, every desire. I basically never said no. I couldn't afford doing that, but I never said no. I was buying a whole bunch of stuff, and it wasn't necessarily even one kind of thing, like buying only mattifying foundations. I was buying things that just appealed to me, or had good packaging, or had good aesthetics, or something that I really, or fantasy Shauna wanted to participate in. And by stopping all of that, I was able to really see, okay, I don't actually like these things, and it helps me or empowers me to say no more often because I know I don't like that thing, opposed to continuously buying, never really know how I feel about a lot of things, but buy anyways because I just like buying stuff. The next thing is that no buys can help benefit our financial health, even if it's 1 month or 6 months or 12 months. Even if we go back to how we bought before, I think the time we spent not buying things can benefit our financial health because we're not buying stuff. That's a positive. We can save money, or we could put our money towards other purchases that were actually necessities, or maybe something else entirely. So one thing I liked this year in particular is that no buys can help us figure out what threatens our contentment, or even where discontent comes from. Like, why do we feel this way about our things? What makes us feel like our stuff isn't good enough? What makes us feel like we want more things? And the focus on the contentment and the discontent has been a new layer this year, and such a really valuable insight for me in particular in the no buy. I think that they can be rewarding as hell when we complete them, whether it's 1, 6, or 12 months or something else entirely. Like, you did it, and I think that's a fabulous feeling. And especially if you pick a time that really feels like a stretch for you, completing it is just icing on the cake and can be really empowering. Especially if you haven't stuck with a no buy before, or you've seen yourself as somebody who can't do it. Proved yourself wrong, because you can. The last thing is that they can help us be more critical or independent thinkers. So by that, I mean making choices for ourselves and thinking over our decisions instead of acting out of impulse or even instinct. For a lot of people, we're saying no a lot, and so we get better at saying no. But one of the things that a lot of us have as rules is wait a week or wait 2 weeks before you make a purchase. And so a lot of us begin thinking more critically about our purchases and what kinds of criteria we're using to make purchases. And I think that's particularly powerful if we haven't had them before. And so I think baseline, regardless of how smart you think you are, going on a no buy, I think helps us become more critical thinkers, which is beautiful, powerful. I love it. And I guess in a similar vein, it can help us make choices that other people aren't making and be okay with that. There are people who don't want to be on a no buy, who are saying it's not for me. There are people who are buying new makeup all the time and you're not. And at first that can be really challenging because you're like, I want that thing too. Or maybe we can even feel jealousy about the way or the kinds of collections other people have, or the amount of things that they're buying. Whatever the case may be, it, at least my opinion, is that we can see other people making alternative decisions that can maybe even tempt us to, want to change our minds or not be on a no buy. And we can say, I'm glad that works for you, and I can make this choice for myself. I don't think this is universally like a challenge for everybody, but I know for people who want to people please, especially if your family is questioning your decisions and you're like, no, I'm going to make this choice for me, or you're seeing other people make other choices on social media and you've been influenced by that factor before, making a choice that is best for you, believing it and sticking to it, and sticking to your beliefs can be really great practice for life. So let's talk about balance. And for me personally, the most difficult thing to balance, as I said, is making every purchase feel like it's a bad thing. And I think part of that does come from the work on my channel. Like, a lot of the videos I make are intended to help you if you're looking for inspiration, really, for your no buy, and to point out behaviors maybe we haven't noticed before, I haven't noticed, you haven't noticed, things that might have caused trouble for me in the past, and use that to kind of be the voice of reason. Because I feel like when we're on a no buy, a lot of us, we're not perfect all the time, and at least for me, I need that inspiration to be like, yeah, like, I'm kind of struggling today. I need to hear that don't buy it kind of rhetoric or mentality, or something that supports that just don't buy it kind of belief. And I really feel like I really wish that when I went on my no buy, there was more videos like this. And because I'm producing so much of the, don't buy it kind of videos, I think I know it makes some of you feel like I think all buying is crap, and that if you buy anything, like, oh my gosh, look out. That's not actually my personal belief or what I believe or want to practice. I know it can make some of you feel like that, and I also feel like that sometimes, where because I'm producing so much of this content, I can, in the back of my mind, be like, oh yeah, you can't purchase anything, like everything is bad, or it kind of gets into my brain even though I'm not actually telling myself that. So I need to take a step back from that kind of content myself every now and then. The inspiration for this video, when I was talking to my friend about, is that I saw somebody who posted a video of them, like they were on a low buy, not a no buy. And they're talking about their experiences in the first, few months of the year, what they bought and how they feel like they did. Kind of their take on, my contentment updates or my no buy updates. I mean, I didn't invent that, but it was like their version of that. And I was watching this video and I was like, wow, that's a really healthy relationship to makeup. Like, I want that. I want to have that. I want to be in that place of, I can set a budget, I can stick to it, I can allow myself to buy things throughout the year and buy things for fun and be inspired when I buy, and, not believe that buying that because you buy something, or not vilifying buying in general, at least like for myself, not for others. And I talked to my friend about it, and I was like, wow, like I keep flip-flopping on the no buy, low buy thing. I'm not really sure which one is best for me. It was in that conversation that I realized a couple of things. One, that I'm not changing my mind. Like, I'm still going to be on the no buy. And for the contentment year in particular, I think it's very important to be on a no buy, to figure out where your contentment comes from, where discontent comes from, and really actively focus on those things. And I kind of think that buying stuff can, add a little messiness to the fold that I don't really want. And I also really want to focus on the contentment by using what I have and putting that at the front, really, is all I'm trying to say. Maybe a budget will work for me in the future, but that's not for 2022. And what I really liked about that video is that I felt like they were going about things that seemed like they have a healthy relationship with money and spending and stuff, and they're like pretty confident or pretty satisfied with their kind of consumption financial life. And so my friend Rita, she reminded me of, I guess, a few things. I don't know, I think I said that, but we're gonna go back to that conversation with her. And what she reminded me of is what I've spoken about in this video, that what works for somebody else doesn't inherently work for you or even work for you right now. Because when I think about the amount of stuff I own, I really believe that if I bring in even, let's say, 3 more eyeshadow palettes or a couple more blushes, that's going to be enough to push me over the edge to be like, okay, I have too much stuff, I'm overwhelmed. And I feel like I've found my sweet spot with my numbers, and bringing in any more, I think it's going to tip the scale. And so finding the sweet spot, I think, is a really good way to find balance in your no buy. And even if you finished one, deciding, do I go on a low buy? Do I go for a beauty budget? I think thinking about what can you actually handle? What kind of inventory can you personally handle? And what feels like a good amount for you? I think is just a fabulous way to consider the balance and what works for you. So somebody else can have 20 palettes or 100 palettes, and you might have 5 or you might have 50. And the person who has 100 palettes, they could feel like, they're satisfied. Or a person with 20 palettes can feel satisfied. And a person with 5, all of these people can feel satisfied with what they have. And that doesn't mean that because that person is satisfied with what they have, that you should also be satisfied with that number. That number is for them and it's not for you. And I think if we take away anything from, a video like that, it's, I want to figure out what my enough is. They know for them it's 20. What's my enough? I guess for me, what also works in finding the balance or finding a balance in my no buy is framing it through a goal or a word. And for me, that's contentment. And by putting the actual, or I guess what most of us think of as no buy, as the act of not buying stuff, if I put that secondary and put the contentment first, it feels much more satisfying, much more rewarding, and easier to kind of commit to, and just more lighthearted. And I think easier for me to find that balance. And I think focusing on contentment helps to, if I've gone too far and I feel like, okay, I'm just focusing on this stuff, I'm just justifying every purchase, I'm viewing things I'm viewing purchasing as a bad thing, I'm feeling guilty or stressed of buying anything, focusing on contentment can help me swing the pendulum kind of more back to that middle state. And it gives me this goal that's not based on numbers. Even though I just said find your sweet spot, that's a great tip, but that doesn't necessarily mean it works for you or work all the time. Something that also helps with the balance is finding the contentment, what makes me content and what that looks like for me. And so it allows me to figure out and focus on really what makes me happy, what brings me joy or what sparks joy, and using those things and focusing on those things. And when I shift my focus to that, just that, what brings me joy, the fact that I can't buy new makeup is kind of it's gone. Or not even I can't, but that was a goal. When I focus on the contentment, it helps bring that balance back, and I'm kind of forgetting about a lot of the other noise that was, crowding my brain. Editing Shauna here. My apologies if it's noisy. Some guests just arrived upstairs. I think that the reason why I've been feeling this kind of desire for a pendulum swing or why I felt that reaction to that particular video is that I have been focusing too much on the numbers and the not buying things and not bringing more variety even to the content that I'm consuming and the content that I'm producing. And that was just a really good reminder to me of you have these tactics and you have these ideas, or you have the contentment project in place for this very reason. And so it felt like such an moment when I realized that, and it kind of took that desire away. And also my initial reaction of, well, her relationship to stuff feels really healthy. I saw that in her video and I think it's true, but what I failed to consider immediately after is that my relationship to stuff is healthy too, most of the time. And I found something that works good for me, or works well for me, sorry. Seeing something that works for somebody else, as I mentioned, is great, but I fail to recognize that what I have is also working for me. And it also helps me remove the need to like punish myself, or the view that my no-buy should be punishing. It kind of removes that whole dialogue altogether. And when I'm focusing on joy, it kind of brings fun and a lighthearted feeling to what I'm doing. And it makes the whole thing, and I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the first time I went around, I did hold this view of this kind of punishment thing. And in the sense of like, I have to do this, like I need to do this. And I really wasn't looking at ways to have fun, even like mini projects I could do, even, projects that aren't makeup related. I'm doing some tea stuff in my personal life. I'm just finding ways to have fun with things. And a lot of the fun for me is coming from contentment projects and looking for the fun. And this time around, my rules are much less rigid, and I don't really have a huge focus on the rules. And doing that as well helps me feel more balanced, because it was the rigidity of the rules that made me like just stressed me out and made me feel like it was the rules that made me feel so rigid and made me feel so stressed and anxious, and contributed a lot to the having to justify everything kind of mentality that I do see out there, in the ether. And I can say I've done this too. And so right now I feel like I'm focusing on things that make me happy and that I enjoy doing. Like I love reflecting. I like challenging my own mindset, learning new things, learning about consumer behaviors. I've actually been reading the Journal of Consumer Behavior. Maybe that's not the name of it. There's 2 of them that are really similar, and I've just been kind of reading articles here and there, and that's just been so interesting to me. And I know that the things I just mentioned aren't everybody's cup of tea, but they are mine. And to do these kinds of things and little projects that make me happy and kind of are geared towards my interest, I think it kind of brings balance to my life and to my perspective. So just a little while ago, I was flip-flopping on like, is the no buy for me? Should I be on a low buy? Can I handle a low buy? By just putting like the stuff question out there, focusing on the contentment, and even reminding myself, this is enough. And if I bought a couple more things, I'd be overwhelmed. Really quick reminders that kind of set back, kind of put the balance back into place. So ultimately, the best no buy is the one you can stick to, and I think is the one that's the most fun and enjoyable to do. And if we're stressed and we're anxious and we're like, oh my God, every purchase sucks, if that's how we're going through our no buy and the no buy is punishment, I think it can be more difficult to stick to that kind of thing. That's not necessarily impossible. And I guess before I close out the video, I want to remind you is that a standard approach to a no buy has been advocated on the internet, and kind of like, there's like this normal, like what rules should look like and what your no buy should look like. There's this kind of standard blueprint that's out there. I want to remind you that you don't have to advocate. You don't have to adhere to that. You don't have to stick to that. You can do whatever the heck you want on a no buy. And if a no buy is not for you, you don't got to do it either. And also what balance looks like is going to be different from person to person. So I would love to hear from you in the comments. How do you find balance in a no buy? What strategies have you used? What is the most helpful for you? That's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again around here soon. Bye.